How's it going, everyone? KingBlackToof here. So this is an extension of the analysis video I did in a previous video regarding the two new leader cards, Whispering Hillock and Adder. So we're using the program called Cockatrice. This is one that I used a long time ago, and it emulates drawing of cards and decks and shuffling and all that kind of business. And it's great for this particular scenario that I want to simulate here, which is the spawn ability of these two new leader cards. I think it's now called Create ability instead, but it's basically the Discover, where it pulls certain cards together and then presents you with 3 random. And so we've got all of the particular cards that these two leader cards can pull, and we're gonna look at how often we get certain cards, how often do we get a good card, how often do we get bad cards, how often do we get cards which are just totally useless to us, etc. So let's start with the Whispering Hillock first. So first of all, with the Whispering Hillock, we've got all the organic cards it could possibly pull here, which is 12, as well as the Whispering Hillock itself. So, the scope is okay. 12's not too bad. It means that basically 1 in 4 to get the one that you possibly want. But what we found out from the previous video is that the Whispering Hillock is really much better at being in a long round. So he's like to be played at the end of the game or end of a long round 1 or whatever, and it's generally about 18 value, except for Lacerate, which could potentially get some more. So let's start redrawing now, and we'll see what kind of things we can talk through. Okay, so we've got the Whispering Hillock, which is 6 value, and we get presented with 3 cards. Our 3 cards are Lacerate, Crow's Eye, and Monster Nest. So some really good options here. Now remember, we're trying to play Whispering Hillock. Most likely a lot of this stuff lends itself to being played at the end of a game. So Lacerate could easily get 12 value, possibly 15, maybe more if you're using Drowners and stuff. So this is a great card if you're playing that kind of style, or Weather and they avoid it and start stacking on a row. Crow's Eye is going to be about 12, easy play if they don't stack on a particular row. If you built your deck around Crow's Eye, you could get more value, but most of the time this will just be a 12. And Monster Nest is a great choice because you get value as well as removing value from the opponent. So if it's a top deck situation or something like that, short round 3, then you are going to get something good with this. But that's probably not how Whispering Hillock wants to be played. But yeah, this is decent. That's 12 value with a Drowner, 14 if there's Weather. And you've also got the Ghoul as one of the better options here. Most other things won't be taken. So, it's either Monster Nest, or if the board permitting, Lacerate is probably the best options there. So great selection of cards there. We're going to shuffle the deck, draw 3 more. So we got Arachas Venom, Mardrum, and Manticore Venom. So, 2 12-point plays there. That one requires a little bit of setup, but not too bad in long rounds. People generally have 3 units on the same row. But failing that, you've got Manticore Venom, which will do 12 value. You got a nice tech card there if you're coming across people which are buffing a lot, which again lends itself towards the end of the game. Now, Manticore Venom, generally 12 value is okay. Now, you'd probably want to use Manticore Venom to remove an engine card, but the whole Whispering Hillock doesn't really lend itself to that way. You've got Parasite and you've got Manticore Venom. You could try and play it if they place engine cards down quite late into a game. But you probably don't want to play Whispering Hillock in the start of a game, because you might get a Mardrum or an Arachas Venom or a Crow's Eye or a Lacerate, which is going to lose a lot of value if you're trying to go for Manticore. So usually this will still just be a 12 value at the end of the game, which makes that again 18, and only the tech choice to make it any better in this case, if they've got something that's heavily buffed. All right, let's redraw. Mardrum, Mandrake, Adrenaline Rush. Now this is quite a bad particular one. Adrenaline Rush probably won't be played unless you're playing it in late round 1. Generally, I think you've got enough carryover. I mean, it's an option if you play it in late round 1, if you think you've won anyway, but I assume you don't want to waste value like that. Mandrake and Mardrum are not too bad because, they're tech choices, though. You're not going to get massive value if the opponent's not buffing, if he's just playing something which is, pretty decent normal base strength. If you find against Skelliger, it's not a great idea. So that was quite difficult, that one. Mandrake might be good on something. You'd have to do that, really. That'd be the choice. Right, this time we've got Arachas Venom, Blood Curdling Roar, and Lacerate. So Lacerate is a great one if the board's permitting. And Blood Curdling Roar, about 10 value, but again, you could get to 14 if you've got Harpies in the deck and you're playing things like Alpha Werewolf with the 2 little werewolves to destroy, or Woodland Spirit. And again, 12 there. So it's about 12 maximum, maybe 14 if you've got harpies, or maybe more if you've got a good board set up. That's not including the 6 of the Whispering Hillock, by the way. Okay, we've got Wolfsbane, we've got Monster Nest, and we've got Marjoram. A great selection here. So Wolfsbane probably not going to be used, because the fact that it's gold doesn't mean anything, apart from maybe Roach. I mean, if you haven't played any golds, then this will get you Roach as well, if you have him in the deck. But really, I mean, 12 strength is the same as a Monster Nest to pull a Drowner with no weather. But if you've got weather, it does 14, and you got Ghoul, which could eat something big. This takes 3 turns. It really allows the opponent to dictate what it hits. He could protect with armor, he could protect with Quen. So this is a bad option, and much better to go for things like Manticore Venom and Parasite to just do the value straight away on a target you choose rather than let the opponent choose. So this will probably never be taken, I would say. Monster Nest is a great card. Always want to take that one probably. And this is a good tech choice if you think you can get more than 14, 16 value or something. You've got like a really strong Imperial Brigade, then this is a good choice. We got Wolfsbane, Boulder, and Manticore Venom. Again, Wolfsbane, not a choice really. That does 12 value, and you don't have to wait 3 turns. You might not have enough time anyway if you play him late. So it's probably going to be Manticore Venom. The Boulder, I think, is very situational. 7 damage, but again, we don't know how easy it is to destroy a unit. Against Swarm decks, it could be used, and we've got Drowner, so maybe filling up the row. Again, I think you'll probably take the 12 strength options like Monster Nest, Manticore, Parasite over this. However, it's a nice option, but sometimes it feels like if this gets placed with Adrenaline Rush and something else which is not too great, then it's gonna feel like a bit of a lackluster option for Whispering Hillock, unless you get that destroying of a card. But it takes a lot of setup for that, I think. Not to say you don't have a lot of cards which can move, you definitely do, just I don't know how viable that would be yet. Wolfsbane, Arachas Venom, so it's basically just Arachas Venom. That's not very good. That's probably not going to be very good unless it's situational in when you play Whispering Hillock. So it's just Arachas Venom for 12 value on that one. Right, we've got Parasite, 12 value, Lacerate, and Mandrake. So this is a great option. Parasite, even on an empty board, you can still buff the Whispering Hillock, which is great. Lacerate, good value if you want to go for that over 12, and Mandrake is a great tech choice. So this is a really good hand, that one. Basically fills every single void that you could possibly hope for there. Again, we've got Parasite, Arachas Venom, Blood Curdling Roar. Again, pretty much fills most voids. 12 value, 10 to 14 value. Which is about average for the Whispering Hillock. So I'd say we're starting to see repeats here. There's not anything I don't think we haven't got much of. Again, Monster Nest is the great thing, best thing here. Get a unit of yourself, get some weather going with Drowners and such. Better than Arachas Venom, I think. And Mandrake is a great tech choice. So let's just have a look, see if there's anything that we've not really seen very much. Parasite, Lacerate, Adrenaline Rush, Manticore Venom, Blood Curdling Roar, Marjoram, Boulder, Crow's Eye. We haven't really seen Crow's Eye. We saw it a little bit, I think, but effectively, if you build your deck with more Crow's Eye, you might get more value, but we haven't seen that in Monster Nest. So generally, I'd say this is quite consistent. I mean, it's very rare we're getting something which is not good for us in some respect. I mean, this is difficult. I mean, if you haven't got a target for that, it's not very good. That it depends how many turns you've got left, and that could be situational. But yeah, so we can start to see the Whispering Hillock is not looking too bad, but it's about 18 value, maybe 20 with a little bit more, using Monster Nest and Drowners in weather, and possibly Lacerates and stuff like that. Okay. Now let's go on to the Adder and just see what possible curse. Now she's got a lot more cursed units available to us, so things will be slightly different. So Adder has access to 23 cursed units that she can get, so the scope is quite big. And we've got quite a gulf of cards which are really not very good and cards which are great. So we've got cards like the Botchling and the Lubberkin and Vincent, which I consider not very good. And we've got cards like Skjarl, Howard Houndsnout, Iris possibly, which are considered quite good. Now, in the previous video, we started to see that really Ada was more useful played very early on in a game. So maybe 1 or 2 cards set up. When they play an engine card, you play Ada and hope for some removal. If you fail on the removal, then you get some carryover with Morkvarg or Geared. If you fail that, then you put something on the board like an Archer Spore or a Savage Bear to just get more value over time. So she's definitely better at being played earlier on in the game, although there are 1 or 2 little things that you might play in the late game, like Iris and a Berserker Marauder. So let's go and see what kind of discover, create card selections we get, and see if we always get something good or whether we always get something not good, and how often we get something which is just completely bad for us outright. Okay, so we've got 23 cards here with Ada, so let's choose 3 cards. We got ourselves Nivellen, Howard Houndsnout and Morkvarg. So if we played this early on as removal, we didn't have any. Howard Houndsnout is a great option if you can actually do the 1 damage to the skull, which I think a lot of the cursed Northern Realms do 7 damage, you know, item spears with the tormented mages. So there's not necessarily a clear, easy way to play 1 damage pings. I mean, you're probably not going to take too many machines because that's a hence out type of thing. So he's okay. He's a really good card, in fact, but it's just about damaging. How do you do that 1 damage? Maybe some form of weather might work well. We'll have to see. The Tormented Mage can pull spells, so maybe we will see some spells which do a tiny bit of damage later on. Nivellen, not really useful. I mean, 10 strength is good. It makes her a 16 value play, but not massively useful to move units with Northern Rounds unless you're moving them away from weather cleared rows and into weather. Morkvarg, again, is a great option here. If you played her early, you know, all these seem to do well playing early. Howard loses a bit, but not an awful lot. But you get some decent carryover. May get locked, you know, it's possible. But maybe you'll have Ronvid as well. You know, it's a good option there. So that was a really good start, that one. Shuffle and draw 3 more. We've got Skjarl, an amazing one. He earns a lot of money. Berserker Marauder, not really. I mean, if we're assuming that we play her quite early, because most of the time it is. And was it Ruhin? Also an amazing card. So first off, Berserker Marauder is not going to be used here. Definitely not early on in the game. If you played her late, then you'd have a lot of curse units on the board, maybe some wounded curse units. So he would be better than that, but probably not better than Skjarl still. So Skjarl is 5, so this is an 11-point play there, and then it pulls another cursed unit. So if you get the Cursed Knight, that is generally considered about 14 if you put it on a Tormented Mage. So, you know, that's 25 value there, which is really, really good just for that, into Cursed Cursed Guy. Obviously, it requires a tiny bit of setup in that the Cursed Knight needs a Tormented Mage to get maximum value, but that shouldn't be too difficult because you'll play them quite early on in the game anyway. That's a really good card, and Ruven is also a really good card because he will strengthen all cursed units. You build a Northern Realms cursed deck, everything's going to get way better. I mean, it's like a full test, this guy, for Northern Realms cursed. I mean, if you've got 25 cards, let's say let's just say 15 of them are actual units that are cursed. You know, that's 15 plus 6 plus 8. That's good value, you know. That is really good value. So very nice to do that. If you've got Decoy, you can replay him and stuff. A really good value. I mean, that was a great choice as well. We're getting very lucky with these. Okay, there we go. Not getting so lucky now. Raging Berserker, again, difficulty actually wounding it in some way. There might be some ways, but, you know, Stamble Forwards maybe. Berserker Marauder, if you played it early, not too good either. And Vincent, also not a good idea. So this is probably a really bad thing. You'd probably just go for an 8. One of these 8. You might take the Berserker Marauder for the future. You maybe Shani might be good on it, so it's nice to take it just as an idea. Vincent, if you start to see your opponent is playing some sort of heavy armor thing, then you may take him later so that you can res it and get loads of stuff. I don't see that one being easy to ping, honestly. So this was actually quite a terrible one. You'll get 8 strength plus 6, so, you know, 14 value there, which is the same as Radovid, but Radovid locks 2 units. which is clearly better. We got Vincent, we got a Tormented Mage and a Giant Toad. So Vincent, again, not useful early on and questionable later on, I think, because you'd have to play the armor archetype and that doesn't seem to fit with Adder very well. Tormented Mage is good. Really all depends on how many spells and item cards you've got. If you've got one item or spell card for every Tormented Mage, you don't want to run the risk of having a dead Tormented Mage later. But I mean, it could be good. I think they're 2 strength. On Gwent database it says 3, but I'm not sure. Giant Toad, however, is reasonable. You don't necessarily want to discard anything in your hand, I don't think. But it's not a bad choice if you've got something worth that you don't mind consuming. And it's a nice safe choice, I think, to just go through your deck a little bit. We got Alpha Werewolf, which is a nice 10 strength. You won't get the Moonlight benefits from this, but 10 strength makes it 16 there. That's the blandest way you could get decent value. Damn Sorceress, that's pretty good. Now that is good because she'll activate straight away on an empty board because Adder is cursed and on the board, so she will do 7 damage. So they place a 7 damage engine card. You can just play Adder straight away, try and get a Damn Sorceress and try and remove it. And we also got a Tormented Mage. Again, if you're taking things like Spear, then you could play Adder into Tormented Mage into Spear and do removal. And this is where I think Adder will be played, if they've played at all. I mean, a lot of people are opposed to her. But I think when the opponent plays an engine card that you want to get rid of, you'll play Adder, and you'll look for Damned Sorceress, you'll look for Tormented Mage into Spear, you'll look for the Strigger that does 8 damage, and you'll try and look for that removal to destroy it. And failing that, you'll go for things like All Geared and Morkvarg for a carryover. And failing that, you'll go for Archer Spore and Savage Bear, just for a lot of overtime value. And failing that, you'll go for the bland cards like Alpha Werewolf, I think. So, you know, decent choice there. We got Iris, Alpha Werewolf and a Tormented Mage. So, Tormented Mage, again, we've discussed how many spells and items you have to whether you want to make one of them a dead card or not. Alpha Werewolf, bland value, but 16. She's good, but not early on in the game. Now, there's only really 2 cards that you want to, maybe 3 cards that you care about playing at the end of the game. But it's a bit of a risk, because if you play some things at the end, they don't have massive value, like Morkvarg or Geared, Archer Spore, that type of thing. So, like, you could choose her and know that you can remove it if the opponent doesn't decoy it, because if they boost it or armor smith it or, you know, trying to defend it, then you do have things that are 7 damage, 8 damage, you know. You could use a Spear with a Tormented Mage to do like 10 damage to it. So it's possible to kill, definitely. But early on in the game, you might not have that many units on the board. They may decoy it, they may consume it when you haven't got many units, they may lock it and stuff. So it's just a bit of it's an option, which is nice, but obviously that tends to be better in the later game where they've got less options for it. Oh, we got All Geared, which is a good choice, carryover. Werewolf, it's immune, won't get the Moonlight value, so not a good choice. And Novellen, which is, again, not great to move, but good just value, really, unless you're going for weather and all that. But All Geared will probably be your choice here. We've got Darren. Nice card that, but very scary. Savage Bear and an Alpha Werewolf. I did that the long way around. Okay, base value, you know, you play that if you haven't got anything better. Darren, this guy is amazingly good with weather, amazingly good with things like Vandergrift. Kind of requires mid-game play. I think playing him early would be a bit foolish because, you know, he'll probably get removed. He'll probably get removed either way, to be honest. But, you know, if they use a removal on something else, then you can play this guy and you can get loads of value, loads of money from this guy. He's pretty good. Lubbokin, oh, instant no on that one. Ruhin, again, great value, amazing value. And Strigger, again, early on in the game, get that targeted removal is quite good. But I think Ruhin, you'd have to decide how important is that engine card. If it's an Imperial Brigade, it might be worth a lot to get rid of it. But if it's something like an Ancient Foglet, you'd be happy leaving it. and just use Ruhin for later. Last one then. Werewolf, not too good. Curse Knight, pretty good. Make sure that you play maybe a Tormented Mage first. You don't really want to convert Adder because then it's only 2 points extra. And we also have Darren again, which is good. So, you know, decent choices here. I mean, not often have we got really bad choices. I mean, the average value is on that one is like 13. That one could be considerably more. That one is the potential for loads, but really more likely to be removed. So I think, you know, we're getting a lot. I think the best thing is Skjal. Skjal is definitely the one which is king here. Easy 25-point play, thins the deck. Darren is riskier, but has the potential to be tons more value. So, I mean, she's not too bad, right? I don't think she's too bad. She's got a lot of good potential. There are some pretty naff ones in here. But overall, Adder seems okay. I think Whispering Hillock is more consistent, but less creative. I mean, I think the highest you can get with Whispering Hillock is about 18 to 20. Maybe a bit more if you've got a strong unit for a ghoul. But with Adder, you've got the potential of getting 25, 30 if you can actually play Iris and kill it. 31, I think it is. So, you know, she's more crazy, but also potential for more as well. So more risky. But nothing really that's going to overly win you the game, I don't think. I don't think there's anything that where like, you get a random Scorch and it's really powerful. Skjal is really good, 25-point play leader. When you start looking at things like Bruverhoog, he can do that consistently, which is probably still better than Adder in this case. But still got a few more cards to reveal. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on these two. And again, I'll see you again very soon. Take care.